Welcome to episode 31 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, where we're here to talk about the junk removal world, the waste industry, the demolition, deconstruction individuals within our community. If you're here to grow, scale, build your business, get in or get out, you've come to the right place. We're 30-some episodes in the Trash Talk Business Podcast. As always, I'm Eddie Weins from the great state of Wisconsin. Casey Bubba Lawrence from the DFW, focus on the FW of the great state of Texas. How are we doing today? There you go, Casey. Can't even talk. How are we doing today, Casey?
We're doing pretty good. We had an interesting weekend. I think we had a very beneficial and, I think we did a lot. It was very productive. Let's put it that way. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Do a little wrap up on JUNKCON and kind of go over what we thought was amazing, what we thought was good, what we got from it. And interesting things that we saw. I think, it was the first time for both of us to be in a situation where we were surrounded just by junk removal companies. So I think we actually have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I've gone to a few conferences the last few months. So going back to WasteCon, put on Waste 360, I believe, back in May in Vegas. That was the first conference I went to this year, and maybe one of my first ones I've gone to since since alleged COVIDs are over. I guess I'll declare it. COVID is over. Let's just say that. It is, but I don't know if we have to get a declaration. So I went there, and that's how I heard about JUNKCON, from another veteran junk removal business. So that was cool. And then I've gone to a few conferences since. I did the Scrap Expo in Louisville. I did a e-scrap, so electronic waste scrap in New Orleans. I went to Washington, D.C. as part of the National Small Business Association fly-in. So we went into D.C. I had a chance to meet with some senator's aide and a couple other people. And the reason I say this is because of all of them, exactly what you just said. For all the conferences I've been fortunate to go to lately, the JUNKCON was definitely the most rewarding, maybe, of all of them.
Relevant? I think maybe relevant.
Yeah, I don't want to use the word comfortable because whatever it is, I'm comfortable a lot of places. But it was like, hey, I'm at home. Like, I get these cats, these guys get me. What we're doing works for all of us. Like, it just fit. And on top of it, a lot of our listeners were there. It was a great conference. Yeah, that regard. And I felt like I had a lot to provide. The other conferences I felt, or I was taking a lot, like I was taking a lot of information then, but not giving. And I spoke at the e-scrap conference in New Orleans, so I gave my perspective. But otherwise, I was taking. This one felt very much like, I'm contributing to the conversation the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that, a lot of other conferences, you kind of seem a little out of your element in a sense where most of the people there are on different levels of business than you are. Like the WasteCon, for instance, like you're dealing with billion-dollar companies where you don't get really an opportunity to sit down with a founder or an owner who is going through year 5 troubles or going through the grind of the market shift. Like, hey, why am I having now a slow summer? I've never had slow summers. Well, you know what? Cool. We can actually conversate on that because you don't have to worry about the wash of money, right? So like if you're a billion-dollar company, it's easy to say, oh yeah, summer didn't go great. We only made 13 billion instead of 17. But because everything's different, right? Your customers are different. Your problems are different. This was a very relevant experience, I think, for us, especially just to meet a lot of people that we've been talking to lately that have been listening to us. Great support, right? We've been having such great support from all these guys, and we got to kind of put faces to the messages, I guess you could say. And at the same time, we learned how it is around the country in junk removal on more of a personal level, I think.
Well, not even around the country. I had a gentleman come up to me who's in
your backyard,
in my backyard. Like he's on. He grew up on 82nd. My house was on 108th. Right, so we're within 30 blocks of each other, and now he's running his business out of 60th and 60th and Mill Road, and I ran my business at 108th and Mill Road. So like within 50 blocks of each other. But it took us getting all the way to the JUNKCON for him to reach out to me. And the thing is, he goes to the same gas station I go to. We have this Quick Trip gas station. It's 3 blocks from our shop, and that's So one of the bigger gas stations around. It's not like a full truck stop, but it's big enough for, some more bigger trucks. He sees my trucks there. We see our competitors there. And so it was great. Him and I sat and talked. We have two different marketing strategies, two different sides of the organization, two different growth trajectories. But he came up to me, he's like, hey man, he's like, I've been wanting to stop by your shop and say what's up to you. I just never did. I'm like, hey, you're welcome anytime. And that was one of the things that's
the other thing.
Even in competition,
I think that's the other thing. Yeah,
it's a good industry to be in, because even competition in town, we can learn from each other. He taught me something. He told me about a marketing strategy he did, and I'm like, God, son of a bitch, that was good, right?
Yeah.
And because I've been doing it for a lot of years now, and I'm, I know what I know. I forgot, right? What some of those things I did early that worked, and I'm like, fuck, there's a reason why he's getting some market share, because I stopped doing some of the things I did years ago that were combat effective. So that was a good refresher for me. He thought he was going out of his way to learn from me, and it's like, man, I learned from him. So it was
and that's the other thing is, it was a chance to be around a bunch of people that you didn't see as competition when normally you naturally feel them. Like, I actually now think if I were to rewind time a few years ago, it may have been beneficial to reach out to a more well-rounded junk removal company that was local to me, or at least in the same area, and grab lunch and just talk. Hey man, how long have you been in business? Oh shit, I've only been in business for 3 years. And by my hillbilly math, this is a $20 million business. And if you ain't hitting $20 million, that means there's room for everybody else. So can you help me a little bit? Can you share your what not to do's kind of thing? Yeah. And it was very cool, because I think you and I especially learned a lot, because now we are seeing a younger generation coming in doing this business completely different than you or I were doing. And it's like, what do you mean you don't have Facebook? How are you successful? What do you mean you're doing this? That's insane. And we start looking at, these are 20-year-olds. I mean, 20, 22, 23. And it's very impressive. And actually, you start thinking, wow, we may be old, but we're learning from the generation behind us.
We're exactly. We're not stuck in our ways, but we're certainly. When I first got into junk removal, when I went to a lot of networking events, a lot of places, even when I went to WasteCon, the waste conference, I'm on the younger demographic, right? It's an older industry. Yeah. Waste removal is an older industry. It's a bunch of old white dudes, right? And then when we get into junk removal, it's like, man, there's a wide range here of people. Yeah, I would say we were in the middle, if not on the high end of age. There's a lot of cats in their 20s, and even some of these cats where it's like they've been doing it for. We had dinner one night with a couple of guys from Bend, Oregon. They were like 21 and 22, and they've been in it for like 14 months. And I'm like, shit, I've been doing this for 13 years. And this is the first time I've gone to a conference for us. So the fact that you've been doing it for 14 months, I remember I've been a cat that's been doing it since June. You've been doing it for 3-4 months, and you've already gone to a conference? Like, you're like, you got to be so much farther than I got, right, in the last 6 years doing it full time, because you have this opportunity presented to you, and you took advantage of it.
Well, they're investing in themselves, right?
Yeah. I remember the franchise we were part of. I went to their convention, and it was terrible, because it was just one big pitch to buy more crap. The only thing that was salvageable with it was the fact that we could network. But in that franchise relationship, there was a lot of competition built in. Like, one thing you said this weekend that surprised me, or it didn't surprise me, right? Surprised the person we were talking to. You talked about another franchisee in your area, and you're like, yeah, they were my competition. And it's like, man, that's fucked. Right? When you're part of a franchise, you're supposed to be part of like a brotherhood. Like, hey, we're going to do what's best for the franchise. And it's like you have and you have independent owner operators that treat each other better than franchisee to franchisee.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same reason why you and I got together. Right? When we were pinned against each other, you're like, yeah, fuck that guy. Right? Like, there's this built-in competition. But now, like, when you meet someone in person, you're like, oh man, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. There's another guy that's in the Milwaukee area, Sergeant Hall, who's down in Racine, 45 minutes from me. And it's like, I've seen his trucks around, he's seen my trucks around. We're both vets. Dude came up to me, was like, hey man, what's going on? It's like, oh dude, I know who you are. Right? And so I'm thinking about this guy. I've seen his website, I've seen his fucking truck, and you like have this perception on him. And it turns out, dude's cool as fuck.
Right? Well, that's the thing, right? Because
like you gotta choose to do
naturally, and you also have to get out of your comfort zone and say, hey man, like, what, you're doing something right. If I'm seeing you in my area, that means you're doing something right. Yep. So I'm not saying, and I told us that there's a guy there that was actually, and he was from Texas too. He's actually out of my hometown, And I was telling him, I'm not trying to say cater to your competition, not at all. No, don't give them jobs and leads, but it's good to know them. It's good to have them in your back pocket. Yeah. It's good to have a relationship with them. It's like a friendly competition. Like, hey man, look, I'm 2 trucks down. I'm dealing with a lot of crap right now. I can't get to this customer who I trust, who trusts me, but I've known you for a couple of years. We keep in touch. You know, I'm kind of giving you a layup here to help me out. Right.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. But at the same time, you can grow together. I mean, you look at the space of junk removal and recycling, and it's insane. And then you look at actual junk removal numbers. I was telling people, junk removal gets hidden under the umbrella that is waste management. Yep. Right? That's why anything you fill out online, it asks for your industry. You don't see junk removal. Sometimes you'll see waste management or environmental services. But when people are searching for you, sometimes you do have to give them an idea of what you do, because they're like, oh, I thought you were just a trash company. Like, you pick up trash bags. Well, other junk removal companies out there are also that, I guess you could say protected, or not protected, but hidden. So they don't know how many other companies are out there doing great or doing shitty. That doesn't matter as much as they're out there doing stuff that you probably wouldn't know of, you know? Mm-hmm. I watched the video. On YouTube. I just typed in JUNKCON, to be honest with you. And it was this morning. Yep. And it was of Lee. And he was talking about last year's JUNKCON. And the biggest difference was last year's was just for JRA clients only, right? It was JRA specific. And then this year he opened it up to outside of JRA. And I think that was a great idea. But I also think that companies like JRA and that are out there that are supporting the junk removal industry as much as they are, without actually being a franchise or whatever, they need to understand that it's okay to have competition in your backyard sometimes, because how else are you going to better suit yourself and your business to get in front of them as well? I mean, hell, they had we talked to a digital marketing agency, right, who sort of kind of does what JRA does. Yeah. And they were a sponsor, you know? I think that's a great idea.
I thought Lee did a good job, and the whole JRA team. It's like, yeah, they have their clients, but you've got to get some of that natural osmosis going, because not everyone's going to have the same mindset, right? I'm not a customer of JRAs. I respect what they do, and Lee came on our podcast here. We had a great conversation. He's obviously built a good business out of it. The goal here is that we come together and build this industry. This industry has grown 10 times, has grown to a $10 billion industry, when just back in 2016 it was 5.5. Right? So it's doubled. Yeah. It has doubled in the last 10 years to a $10 billion industry. And the opportunity now is that we come together, not like full fucking unionize and we need our rights, but come together and share best practices, so we're not just look like the junkies or the junk collectors. You know, even why we do this podcast, coming up in the next couple of weeks, we got some really big individuals in the recycling world, whether it's scrapping or general recycling, to teach. And I had the opportunity at JUNKCON to teach scrapping to, it was like 50 people, 70 people in that room. And I had a chance.
All I know is they ran out of chairs. They were lying on the walls and sitting on the floor. So let's just say that.
Yeah, however many chairs there were. And I had 45 minutes, and I got cut off at an hour 5. I mean, we were already in the Q&A at that point, but I went over my 45 on just the presentation. Matt came in there, was like, dude, come on. I'm like, hey, there's still asking questions. Whatever, got to go. But no, we had a good time with it. But it's now our opportunity, at least mine, to talk about recycling, right? To challenge the people in this industry to really be the spearhead of recycling, because the big waste companies do it, right? But the small guys don't. So do you want to be like trucking a truck who's just dumping loads wherever it's convenient, sometimes illegally? Or do you want to be on the spearhead of doing things right? And I'm going to advocate for doing things right, obviously. But a lot of times it's a lack of education, a lack of awareness. And so that was...
Well, how many people have used you solely based on your views on the environment? It doesn't matter if it's... Yeah. If it's plus, then that's all that matters, right? People didn't stop using you because you're going green, right?
No. I talked about this in the presentation, and I looked at our survey results. 20% of respondents said that our environmental responsibility was the primary reason they've hired us. So it's like, that's huge. But I got 20% of my customers over my competition, because not only do I say it, everyone says it. You go to every website, it's like, we recycle. But it's like, you got to show it and be part of it. And And we do that. Like we do tours in our facility. We have a big warehouse. But we started with 700 square foot garage, right? That was the other thing. I saw a lot of people this last week where it's like I saw where they were at. And I've been in all those phases. I've been the chuck in a truck with one trailer, it was my car's old van, and I was broke, and I was picking stuff up for free back then, right, just to scrap it. All the way to now where I got 10 trucks, and we're running 6-8 trucks a day and pounding. I had 10 franchises across the country at one point. I've seen the whole scale. So the other thing I loved about this last week, it's like when people were talking, it's like, oh man, I know that either I know the market because I've been in the market, or B, I know where you're at in your business. But what was homogeneous, regardless of the size, scale, scope, where you were, everyone was there to get better. Yeah. And that's why it was so interesting. You know what? It was a very different conference. Like you asked me, Casey, hey, how was this versus some of the other conferences? And some of the other conferences I've been to, from my perspective, it was a lot of salespeople selling shit to a lot of owners. This conference was majority owner operators collaborating and networking together. The one aisle of, hey, get some value, or have people hawk shit to you, wasn't even that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, you got your insurance guy, you got your marketing company. One guy was doing free photography, so Casey and I got a great glamour shots, headshot. Maybe we got to share that. Taylor, you got to put that up one of these days. We got a great shot. Yeah, great. I don't know about Casey. I was the out of focus guy.
You looked kind of out of focus though.
I was out of focus. Only one of us could be in focus, and I was the out of focus guy. But then they had a couple of trucks there. So like, oh, that's a 14.3, that's a 17.7. Just get an idea of what the trucks look like, and they look cool when they're wrapped. The Worx guys were there, which is the SaaS, the system. I use a different software platform than that. Whatever. But
but you still got to learn
built
more
around collaboration
because you talked to them. I mean, you talked to work. You were there with Worx talking because we're like, well, wait a minute.
Different.
So like, yeah, I mean, you were like, look, I've been using Jobber because that's all I've known for 7 years and I love it. So in order for you to change my mind, how or why would it? You know what I'm saying? And we sat there and talked to these people and like learned more because the one thing we've learned, and we learned with just the QR codes, by the way, technology never stops progressing.
No,
it never stops. I mean, the amount of data you can get from something like a QR code is insane. And people are coming up to us like, you have a QR code on your back. That's awesome. That's genius. I'm like, yeah, click right here if you want to see our website. And then boom, now we have everything we need to start putting in the mix for better opportunities. And that's the cool thing. Like you can.
I'm predicting it now. Next year, I'm going to put the prediction now. Next year at JUNKCON, 10%. I'll say 10%. Right. So if it's 550 people there are going to have a QR code on their shirt. We are, dude. And we're not the first person ever to put a QR code on our shirt, but we had a big ass one on our back. I'm gonna find a picture and put it up there. But it was it got the conversation.
Actually, I got one for you. It's a good one.
You got it?
It's a good one. I'm gonna send it to your phone.
Why don't you suggest that? Just pull it up. Is it on your phone or where's that?
It's on my phone. I took a picture of a guy he was scanning your QR code.
Did you put it on Facebook? I'll just go to your Facebook. I think you put it there. I'll go to Facebook.
I did actually, I think.
That way, the people that weren't there, or if you're not connected with us, here's our shameless plug at 18 after the hour. If you have not connected with us personally and professionally on LinkedIn, the Trash Talk Business Podcast on Facebook, you're missing out because we're fucking awesome. Also, there's two groups that we do. Because I'm pulling up Facebook, I don't normally have it on when I'm doing the podcast here. What am I saying? There's also a couple groups.
You have your messenger up?
Yeah, throw it on my messenger.
I'll just do that. Yeah.
No, if you haven't connected with us on LinkedIn, feel free. A lot of people, I had a couple people come to me like, hey man, I wanted to reach out to you on LinkedIn, but I don't know what the status quo was. And I'm like, the status quo is you hit me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Status quo is message me. What's up?
Yeah. I had someone, a previous J-Dog franchisee yesterday hit me up on Facebook Messenger. And so he's like, hey man, I want to talk to you about, stuff. And I was like, oh yeah. So he hit me up. And it's like, I'm not saying that Facebook Messenger by any means is the most professional. Obviously, him and I are already friends, so it works.
Yeah.
But this is a good one. But it works. Like find a way to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm
so, and that's how I use LinkedIn, you know, is to get in touch with people I normally couldn't.
Start
somewhere. Yeah, you have to, because, you know, and I'm going to tell you now, for those of you listening out there, okay, for one, if you're a vet, stop everything you're doing right now and go to premium LinkedIn. You'll get it for free for a year. It's awesome. And if you're not a vet, I would highly suggest you paying for premium for a year, because it's worth it.
I still pay. It's like $60 a month. I don't even use all the features, but you can. You can email people. You can see who's watching.
Learning everything.
Stalking you. Can you see my screen yet? I'm working from home.
No.
I'm doing. You can't see it. All right. We'll keep.
I see you, and I see your cabinets. That's it.
Yeah. This is. I'm in the former dining room of the house. I recently moved, and my office isn't set up, and I don't know that I'll ever set up my office. I kind of like this space. I guess I can see my living room. My daughter's here. She's yelling about something. She's saying no, she's not here. All right, for whatever reason.
Well, and the reason, you know,
my screen's not sharing.
The QR code on the back.
That's why I need Taylor. That's why I need technical support from Taylor.
The reason it was such a hit is because it was also a conversation piece. You know, people are looking at it like, what is that? Well, why don't you find out? Boom, website, Trash Talk Business Podcast.
Taylor, hop on here.
There we go.
Quick. Can you put Taylor in post production? Is it up there now? Is Taylor doing it? Taylor's doing something. Taylor's doing. All right, I can't see anything. There it is. Taylor's. Oh no, that's not even a good picture of me. Yeah, that's a terrible picture of me. Look, I look tired in that.
Oh my god!
Jumping in here. See, Taylor just can't stick his head over the screen.
He doesn't have the picture I sent you though. He doesn't have the one with the QR code.
I know. This is not a. You know what it is? I'm fucking running my mouth right there. I was talking in the middle of that picture.
Yeah, you were.
I'll get Taylor the picture. Taylor can put it up in post. That sounds like something he does. I've been watching a lot of Dave Portnoy's videos, pizza review.
He's awesome.
I mean, everything Barstool. Yeah, but I've been watching a lot of what he does. I've been watching a lot of his pizza reviews, and it's just, it's funny to me how he's like, he's got a new guy doing. He had what's his name now? Frankie. He had Frankie doing it for the longest time. Now it's Spider. Now this guy Spider's doing some of his videos. He's like, Spider, put this in during post. And it's like, oh, yeah, why can't you just be candid about shit? So you know, I'm not saying Taylor's going to be nearly as popular someday as Spider. Before that, but you got to start somewhere, right? You got to respect the guys in the production end of things. All right, we'll get. By the time this thing airs, you'll see the picture. That's it.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Yeah,
I'm on it.
He's on it. All right. What other takeaways did you have? I got plenty, but I'm going to kick it over to you. What other takeaways do you have from JUNKCON?
The other takeaways, honestly, is I will say this. I met a lot of not just businesses, but I met a lot of people that were in it for the same reasons you and I were. And that was the coolest thing for me, is knowing that, you know, not one time that I asked someone, hey, why'd you get into this business? Oh, to get rich. You know, it was like their explanation was very similar to ours, right? It was like, well, you know, I just started doing this and started picking shit up and got paid for it. And I was like, dude, I can make some money doing this. And I enjoy it, like the work, like the lifestyle, whatever, freedom. And it was cool. I'm actually going to a conference later on this month that you're joining me at. And it's a completely different kind of conference, right? It's more of a business professional growth kind of conference. It's not exclusive to one industry, but I challenge everybody out there to try to find an industry exclusive conference to at least go to, because you and I went to this, and I think we met some people that we're going to be definitely talking more and more to. Yeah. And whether that's, you know, us teaching them or them teaching us, you know, regardless, it's new conversations, right? It's new faces, it's new connections. And that's how it starts. But I will say, I also did not like the barbecue in North Carolina at all. It was garbage.
Wow.
Just my take.
22 and a half minutes into it, I ate some amazing meals. The fried chicken in North Carolina was on point. Thank you, North Carolina. The barbecue, here's the deal.
No.
When you go to a restaurant, we went to a classy establishment in Raleigh, North Carolina, the Pit. I'll shout out the Pit in North Carolina. I sat down, right? I got there. I said, hey, what are you known for? Right? Because I've had barbecue. And I said, my business partner here has got, you know, a little sensitive stomach, right? And he's kind of a little bitch when it comes to barbecue. So I said, what do y'all do here right? He said specifically to me, he said, if you're looking for barbecue, got to get pork. Don't do
Can you see this?
beef. Yes, I can see it. There you go. See, we figured it out eventually. See, there we go. In post. All right, there's your picture. We're going to get into the barbecue in a second. There's your picture. There's a QR code. You'll see us next 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, we're going to be at Military Influencers Conference in Vegas. We are going to put these episodes up out of order because we can. So this episode is going to come out before Military Influencers Conference is even a thing.
The week of.
The week of. We wanted this to be a hot take. Hot take of initial response to the JUNKCON. Anyways, going back to the barbecue. Go to the pit. I said, what do you guys do? They said they specialize in pork and fried chicken. I said, you had me a fried chicken. So like a boss, I sit down, I get the 2-meat combo. I get the fried chicken with the pork ribs. He even said, get the North Carolina, not the short ribs, the North Carolina ribs, more meat. I said, you do sauce, because I don't do sauce. I don't do barbecue sauce. I don't do yellow mustard or honey mustard. I don't do brown sugar. I got an 8-year-old jumping all over the living room, right? That's how we do things here in my house. But I get the ribs. Delicious. I have a delicious meal. Casey, on their hand, is like, oh, what do you guys do well? Pork? I'm good. All the brisket.
I got pork too, though. It was disgusting. It's like canned tuna.
It did not look good. I'll say that. I don't do pulled pork or shredded pork. Taylor's coming on. Taylor, you coming on or you just teasing? What are you doing over here? Oh, no, thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Taylor.
No.
See, that's why I love Taylor. Jumps in. He knows just enough. Maybe that was your problem, Casey. Casey did not have enough fruit drinks. The fruitiest drink he had all week, I think, was a Miller Lite. He was drinking Yingling and Miller Lite. No passion fruit, nothing. And eating dried up. You know what? Here's the problem. When brisket comes out with shit on top of it, it ain't good. If you got to sauce your brisket, no. A good brisket is juicy,
we went to another place,
plentiful.
though. We went to another place, and I ordered something different, and it was still garbage. The only good thing was the first place we went to when we met Emmy. That was the best food, I think, because, for one, we're addicted to the biscuits now.
Oh, my God.
Like, straight up, biscuits all
North
day.
Carolina, your biscuits. Your biscuits. I love your biscuits.
Yeah, but the chicken waffles was...
Yeah, okay, you had chicken waffles more than once.
Yes.
The fried chicken was good. I had the shrimp and grits. Right? These are things you do down south. You don't mess around with brisket.
Don't.
Go to Fort Worth. Go to the stockyards. I'm a tourist. I'll go down to the stockyards in Fort Worth for brisket. That's where I'll go. But you don't.
Next time you're down here, I'll smoke a brisket.
That's fine. Actually, I tell you, I bought a half a steer. I got a half a steer.
Yeah, you told me. You were ordering on the phone as we were driving to the airport. I'm like, what the fuck are you ordering? Sounds like a lot of meat.
300. I'm gonna tell you what it is. 391 pounds. I'm gonna do the hillbilly math here. It's $1,550 for the animal. $1,561 plus $550 to process it. Okay, so I'm $2,100 into this, right? $2,100, but I'm getting divided by 391 pounds. I'm paying $5.39 a pound, and that's for everything. That's for your tenderloin. That's for your. I didn't get T-bones. I got tenderloin, and I got whatever the other part. I can't remember the ribeye. Yep, that's for your hamburger. That's everything, right? Costco right now, if you want to go buy ground beef, it's like $7.99, $8.99. Good butcher is probably $10.99. Your crap at a Kroger is probably $4.99, $5.99. So you go $539, 391 pounds. That's got to be 18 months worth of meat for me. Because I put two or three deer in the freezer every year.
Yeah,
which is majority of my red meat. But no, and normally, like, I'm not. It's not a stretch. It's $2,000. I'm not going to mince words about $2,000. But $5.39 a pound for 391 pounds of beef. Good night.
So man, you had me at 391 pounds of beef.
That's it. I gotta go buy another. I gotta buy another cooler, or not cooler shit. I need to buy a freezer or two. I'm picking it up on Saturday. All right, so going back to it. Shrimp and grits, approved. Chicken and waffles, approved. Anything fried chicken, approved. Pork short ribs, approved.
Really?
Beef brisket, not approved. Dude, the short ribs were amazing. Amazing.
All right.
I got sick because I ate too much. This is why I think I got sick. I did get sick. I left a piece of fried chicken in my hotel room for about 5 or 6 hours.
Yep.
We didn't have a fridge, and then I ate it.
I mean, even though Andy swore he had a fridge.
I could have sworn I had a fridge. There you go. Knock on you, Sheridan. Hotel, downtown Raleigh.
God,
great hotel otherwise. Oh, Casey, yeah. I
had a bad experience.
You had a bad experience. Yeah, Casey's bitching. I love how you were bitching about your room. Like, my room was terrible. And I was like, my room's great. And you come in my room, you're like, your room was terrible too. And I was like, I don't know what palace living you've been. Like, yeah, it was a little bit muggy. Had a little bit of stank to it. No big deal. Casey got bougie on me.
I get freaked out when I'm drying off and my own wife's hair gets caught on me. Like, when I'm drying off and my wife's hair gets caught on me, I'm like, ugh. Let alone random people.
Oh, my God. Little random people's hair. That's part of the course. Hold on. Taylor was going to jump in there for a second. I don't know if he had something important to say. Taylor, with the breaking news, what do you got, Taylor? That's what I'm saying. He went down to the. You went down to the bar that one night. I went to bed early. You went down to the bar. Did you have a fruity drink?
So, I actually went down. So you listened to Mike Malchowitz's talk, right?
Fucking dialed in. Profit first.
Okay. So when he was like, you ever be at that part of life where you're at that last bit of toothpaste, you know?
Yeah.
The night before that, that's why I went downstairs. I was in flip flops, rolled up jeans because I ran out of toothpaste. So, you know, I was down there getting toothpaste, and a couple guys were like, hey, man, like, pulled me over. So I started talking to them a little bit. And I think I had one drink, and it was a double Jack and Coke, but that was it. I didn't have
not proofy.
I didn't have a passion fruit margarita, man.
You would have had a passion fruit margarita, you would have been, you know, less of a bitch.
I'm interested to see the follow up from the conference, though, as far as like, you know, I mean, I think we asked them before we left, hey, are y'all going to do a survey? Yeah. Right? Because I'm curious to know where they would like to grow if they want to. But that's one thing I think you and I like to ask people. When we were there, we didn't just ask if they listened to the podcast. We asked them if they did, what do you like about it? What do you want to see different? You know?
Yeah. And so again, this is listeners, you guys have no idea how much this podcast is for you guys as much as it's for us. We enjoy doing it, obviously. It's interesting to us. We're learning as we go. We learn, especially when guests come on. We're recapping things. But so I would love to hear, like, do not hesitate. Hit us up on LinkedIn because that's the professional platform, right? You can my phone number's there, my email address is there. We've had a handful of guys that'll hit me up straight away on the email and be like, hey, man, listen to the podcast. This is what I'm thinking. And a couple of them have now appeared on the podcast because they did hit us up. But even at the conference, there was a couple of guys that were like, oh, man, I've been waiting for this conference to talk to you. I'm like, why are you waiting? Right? Like, we're putting ourselves out there. We want to talk to you. But when we did finally talk to some folks, the one guy, Taylor, his name was Taylor, up and away from Atlanta, Georgia, up and away, junk removal. Love that kid. It's like 25, full of piss and vinegar. He's got tons of good ideas.
He's
motivated individual. He's going to be on the podcast here in a couple of weeks because he was awesome. He was motivated. And then he also did something, right? Some of these young guys did. He's like, hey, you just want to go to dinner later? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go to dinner later. Like, right? And we had a couple of the people that were like, oh, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? He just said straight away, hey, man, do you want to go to dinner with us? And I was like, yes. Right? And so I can't stress that enough. Get out there and jump in. Be part of this, right? This podcast is for the entire industry. And we want people, right? There's three types of people in this world, right? There's going to be the creators, the collaborators, and the consumers. I'm challenging everybody now, right? 1% of the world are creators. That's a fact. Right? So that's this podcast, right? We created something from scratch, right? We created something. Feel free to create your own, God bless. Right? 9% of the world are contributors. They're the ones that raise their hand, share their voice. And then 90% of people are going to be consuming. They're sitting back and watching. This plays true in social media. This plays true at fucking conferences. Hey, this plays true at this podcast we have. I'm challenging. If you're a 90%er and you want to step up your game, be a 9%er. Be a contributor to the conversation. Because guys like Taylor from Up, and Wait, he's going to be on the podcast because I want to hear his ideas. I've heard already some, and I want to share his ideas with the world because he's got really, really good ideas.
Absolutely.
But what he said, one of the things he said, and we did hear prevalent about what people like about the podcast, and keep us honest here. Let us know if this is true. Is a lot of people are like, hey, we love the fact that you guys are unbiased. You're like, hey, here's Andy's way. Here's Casey's way. Here's a way that we both did that didn't fucking work. And here's 10 other things that might work. Yeah. So that's a challenge for us, but a good one is we're not here to sell anything. I'm not here to sell a bullshit franchise. I'm not here to sell you anything, right? If you want to have marketing or consulting conversations with Casey and I, we do it, but we don't have a playbook that's like, this is the way you have to do it. It's conversation.
No.
And we're not saying this is the way. This is a way. Put the tools.
Yeah.
If you have 100 tools, you pull the right tool out for the right job.
Well, and also,
one tool, you only use the one tool.
And that's the thing. The thing I liked the most about Taylor, honestly, specifically about Taylor, was the fact that he is doing good.
Yep.
He's young, and not one time did he dismiss anything we said because he thought he knew more. He's like, I'm going to gather as much information as I can. This is exactly what I did. I'm going to gather all these different ideas and information, and then I'm going to process them myself, and then I'll filter out what works, what doesn't work later, instead of being like, whatever. And that right there is how you're supposed to do it. You be a sponge because you're never going to you're never going to succeed to the point where you want to succeed unless you're being vulnerable enough to learn from someone else. Right.
And that was a great lesson for me because I'm the dismissive.
Absolutely.
Like, no. Yeah. I've been that way all my life. So it is an opportunity for me to check myself at the door and be like, okay, hold on, shut the fuck up and listen. And when I do that, I learn so much more. And the conversations are so much better. And that's the difference between looking at the people around you as collaborators or competition. Yeah. Once you change your lens, be like, okay, hold on, we can collaborate and get things done together or build this industry together. There's plenty of fucking competition out there, right? One of the things that I did enjoy, a few of the JRA guys did it, and they're talking about Big Blue. Never heard of 800 God Junk referred to as Big Blue, but it's like, hey man, we all have a common enemy, right? We can all say, yeah, fuck the franchise world, fuck the big guy, right? We can all go after that guy. Yeah. And I say that, and also there was a couple of cats from College Hunks. This was interesting. A couple of guys from or College Hunks, but also Junk Genius. Junk Genius is another franchise. They had like one franchise location, a couple of corporate locations. It was weird. Anyways, I used to compete with them in the Minneapolis St. Paul market when I had a franchise up there with a partner of mine. And he's like, yeah, what happened to you guys? He goes, I remember seeing you. He goes, I remember you specifically, like seeing you or seeing your Facebook post. I was like, fuck this guy. And
because your pins, remember? Your pins you'd put at the scrap.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. There's your lesson. So Josh Helm, who was the guy that ran the J-Dog up in the Twin Cities, who was my battle buddy in Iraq, one of the things he did is we had really good pens. And we would drop our pens off at every scrapyard and every dump. I completely forgot about that. Homeboy from Junk Genius was like, dude, every time I went to the scrapyard or the transfer station especially, he goes, they had your pens. He goes, they pissed me off every time that I had to use
and they were good pens.
Pen. And he goes, and they were good pens. I know. He goes, they had the grippy. So there you go. Yeah. I will preach on this, right? Don't buy a 40-cent pen or a 90-cent pen. I buy they used to be 87 cents landed. I got them from a guy out of Atlanta. He doesn't do it anymore. Jim Meadows, I want to say his name was. Buy good pens. The fact that he remembers that from like 4 years ago, and it pissed him off. Like, right? I influenced his behavior. I was living rent free in his fucking head for years.
You know why, right?
He couldn't knock it. He couldn't knock it.
No,
they're good pens.
And because unlike things like running ads or posters or something like that on a bigger scale, the simplest item, he was like, oh my gosh, you need these. Like, you have to use it at this point. And how did I miss this? How did I miss this opportunity? They beat me to it, and it works.
Every time you go, it's simple. Well, so now waste management's by us, it's all electronic. But a lot of scrap yards and a lot of transfer stations, you still got a hand gen, at least a signature, a receipt of goods. And and the other thing is when you give a good pen, that person at the scale house,
they'll keep it.
They'll keep it. They don't want to lose that fucking pen. They're like, that's actually a good pen, right? Because you get 10 crappy pens for every one good pen. There you go. But you also solved the problem. It was impactful. It solved the problem. And billboards by me. I looked into billboards a couple of weeks ago. $5,500 a month for one billboard.
Well, that's not even the most expensive. So my wife actually used to sell space on billboards, right? And the very big metro areas, companies like Coca-Cola and like bigger companies, they'd buy them outright for a year or something, and they're still spending $10,000-$12,000 a month. No, and you're like, no. Why? Well, it's because that's their marketing, right? They're not trying to tell everybody about Coca-Cola. You already know about Coca-Cola. Yeah. They're just like, look, we got extra, money to spend. At the same time, I think the billboard works for larger businesses that can successfully cover more ground. Because, for instance, if you're stuck in a town, 200,000 people, whatever, who's your target audience, right? For instance, for me, my target audience was residential suburbia, right? That means I didn't care about people on the highways. I didn't care about people going into downtown areas. You know why? Because I'm not going to be there. So I wanted to catch them coming back home, right? I wanted to catch them leaving home. What better way to do that is to be inside the actual area. So I remember talking to someone. He was like, I never saw your trucks, man. I'm like, really? He goes, well, I drove from this point to the other. I was all highway. I'm like, oh, so you never took an exit and went into downtown Southlake or nothing? He's like, oh no. I was like, so you go talk to someone else who works in downtown Southlake or Keller or whatever. Like, do I see your trucks all the time? I'm like, that's good because that's where my customers are, right?
I don't want the person that's driving. I don't want the person that's driving way down, from downtown. No, that's not interesting to me.
But and that's the thing. It was also, this conference was a way for us to. I don't know how many people I talked to have never marketed the grunt style way, right? They never did man, when you go to lunch, you need to go and at least introduce yourself to everybody around that lunch area or that business park or the offices. They're like, oh man, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, that's what you need. Door hangers. I mean, the simplest things. Now, certain people don't like certain items to use, but we were talking to people like, oh, how do you spend $10,000 on ads and you've never ever handed out door hangers?
Dude, the kids from Bend, Oregon. I said, hey, what's your marketing spend? They said, I'm not going to use the number, but they gave me the number. I said, okay, what percentage of that is online? They go, all of it. I go, okay, so you're telling me when you think marketing and advertising, you're thinking the buckets are Google, Facebook, Instagram, not outdoor, radio, TV, networking events,
small businesses,
bulletins, right? Yard signs, door hangers, right? Like, I'm thinking of 100 things you should. And it's because they grew up in a world where they were sitting behind the computer, right? And then even they're 21, 22. So their first 2 years in the adult world, don't go outside and be afraid of the fucking world, right? While people COVID is over, political about this, they were trained to be afraid. And so now I'm like, dude, have you ever walked into a realtor's office and just said, hey, this is who we are? And he's like, oh no. There's no amount of consulting I can do at this juncture in our conversation.
Well, and that's the thing is it's because they don't, and this is not a knock on them at all, but they didn't know how's the best way to reach my customer, the most efficient way, right? Not just cheapest, most efficient, because I can go into a realtor's office right now, set up a presentation. It'll take me an hour for all the said and done. Let's say I spend a couple $100 on donuts or whatever. But now I'm talking to 60 different people, right? And it's way cheaper than what I have to do if I do anything.
Correct. My math is $500 a realtor's office, right? That's
I would say about $300. I mean, but yeah.
Okay. Well, here's why. Right. I say $10 a realtor. If you said I could, right? Because in my head I'm like, okay, 500 if it's an agent, 50 agents, right? If I can get for $10 a realtor, them know who I am, sign me up. Right. Yeah. And when I mean 500, it's a blend because you also have to factor your time. Like you got to build a PowerPoint, all these things. Actually, I got a PowerPoint I'm putting together right now for Keller Williams in my area. Because historically I've gone to those realtor presentations and winged it because I just know my shit. But now I'm going in a little more professional because even with JUNKCON, it forced me to. Like I had 45-minute presentation on scrapping and I built a PowerPoint deck and I was like, oh yeah, you know what? Not everybody can just learn by listening to any bullshit for 45 minutes. Right, it's good to have a slide deck, and now that I invest the time in a slide deck, I don't have to build an entirely new slide deck. I have to add slides, modify slides to tell another story. So,
and also you say a lot. You say a lot in the same. You can tell you don't bullshit as much as you may think you do because your video, you actually reiterate yourself almost to the damn T after you play a video. You're like, I just heard exactly this exact same word for word line. And it wasn't like you were rehearsing it. It's just that's how you explain that thing you're doing.
And that's my challenge. My challenge with PowerPoints is I never want it to be a crutch because we've all done it, especially those of us in the military. It's like death by PowerPoint. You're just like, oh, this and then this and then this, right? But the PowerPoint has to be a training aid for those people that learn from reading or even from seeing versus just audio listener. Right? I'm an auditory listener, so I like presenting. The reason I like podcasts, I'm an auditory listener. If you give me a book, sorry about you. Like that ain't gonna happen. Right? I'm gonna struggle there. So the PowerPoint was good, but it also dials me back in, right? It recenters me that, you know what, not everyone knows who I am. And not everyone's going to pick up on things as quickly as I pick up on. But then to your point, yeah, I threw a couple of videos in to do some hands-on demonstration when it came to scrapping, for example. But you're right, when you know it, you don't have to look at the slide deck. Like I know a Gaylord of number 2 copper wire is 700 pounds. Right, I know it's going to be between $1, $2 max. Let's say it's $1.50. I know that Gaylord's worth. Hillbilly Math says $1,050. Also, here's what's interesting. Total side note: so many people gave up to me last week, and they're like, "Blah blah blah, Hillbilly Math," and I'm like, "Oh, you must be a listener, right?" Hillbilly Math is this thing I've been saying for years, and now people say it back to me. You even said it earlier in the broadcast here.
Well, and they also so go back to your scrap talk, right? Yeah. They can't take Andy Weins with them. But the one thing they were asking was, hey, can I get a copy of that slideshow or can I get the video? Because maybe that's how they learn better, right? Because it is hard, especially when there's a lot of content out there, especially in a conference. It's hard to retain as much as you're actually listening to. But now they have something they can be like, oh, cool, it's in my email. Boom. I'm going to watch this now. And actually, I can learn my own way. Like for me, for instance, if ever I have to speak in public for some reason, bullet points are my go-to. I'll put bullet, this is the topic, and then from there, I'm fine. Because I know what I'm going to say on that subject, and then the next bullet, and then the next bullet. For some reason, that works for me, right? Slides, you know why I never liked slides? Because it's a pain in the ass for me to put them together. Straight up.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So,
it just is.
Okay, so, correct. So I resolved that issue. I resolved that issue simply by paying someone else to do it.
Well, yeah.
That's it. Like, no, specifically, that's...
Yeah. No, it's true.
Not for nothing.
I get it.
I paid somebody else to do it. I was like, hey, I have this idea. I found a graphic designer. She specializes in presentations. She did it. And now this next one I did...
And that's actually genius because even these other small businesses out there, if you don't have a presentation to put together for those realtors, there's people out there, hey, look, this is what I need. Can you help me out? Right. Yeah, it may be a couple $100, but now you can keep it with you and use it over and over and over again.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm going to, if my computer works, we'll see. I'm going to share this slide. Tell me if you can see my screen. A.
Nope. Yep, there we go.
See it? Oh, is it up there? Oh, there it is. All right, now it's working. Okay. Yeah. So this is the scrap. This is the flow chart. This is the flow chart I have. This is in my head. Like, I just have this in my head, right? And I presented this. And so stuff like this is, right, once I actually put it down on paper, I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because this is what my head looks like, but how do I explain this in a way that matters? So the reason I bring it up is it's a great visual representation, but it goes through it. Like, when I say, hey, you only need 3 tools to identify different metals, this is how you do it. Magnetic, right? Is it, what color is it on the inside using a file? And then finally, how does it respond to contact? You hit it with a hammer, right? Does it tear? Does it break? Does it dent? Does it ding?
Does it bend?
Those are all words. Does it bend? Right? Those are all words. So actually, one of the things I'm going to throw out there, and again, listeners, tell me if I want to, one of the thoughts I have is if you're interested, I could put this whole slide deck, I could do a 45-minute to hour-long podcast on this. We can record it. I can talk through it. And that's interesting to me. So if that's something you guys, listeners, think is a good idea, let us know. And we'll present it to the world.
The most important thing you were also reiterating was check with your local scrapyard to see what they want and how they want it, because that right there, it eliminates the issue of people saying, well, I did it this way and it didn't work. Well, look, we're not telling you every scrapyard is going to be the same. At the same time, just because you may have sat through this class with Andy doesn't mean you're going to know everything he just presented. I'm going to tell you right now, after you and I talked, when I started really getting into scrap, I still went to watch YouTube videos. How do I extract this kind of metal from this thing, right? The best way. How do I identify metals before I bring them all the way back to the warehouse and have to file? I mean, it wasn't more like trying to do shortcuts as much as it was, well, I don't even know what the types of metals are. Like, hey, Andy, what types of aluminum are there? And you sat there like, well, technically, you ready for this shit? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, well, how do I learn what extruded aluminum looks like? Or what is it? Well, extrude, right? And then you can break that down into this is what it's used for. Well, same thing applies for any class, I think. But the main thing was I feel like a lot of people, they got that first bite of, holy shit, there's something else I can not just do well, but make money on in junk removal.
Yeah, and again, I told people this, and you and I have talked about this. If you go out there and say, hey, I'm going to recycle everything and be the best at it, you will fail. Yeah. You have to say, hey, what's the one thing that's the best, right? And the best can be subjective based on, right, how what your market or, what you have the space for or what you have the desire to do. To me, scrapping has always been number one because that's how I grew up, and it's been the most, worthy endeavor from a dollar standpoint. But figure out what it is and take one thing at a time. And then, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year later, take on the next product line. I did a thing where I took on all the things at once. It didn't work out. Casey, you did the same thing. But you got to start somewhere and start with the right mindset. Even Mike with Profit First talked about it. He did a 45-minute keynote, and he was talking about a situation where they had 2 groups of 50 people where they said, hey, the goal is to get you to run 5 miles. Right, 5 miles
to get better heart health or something.
Better heart health, right? These are all people that are similar situations. They all had high blood pressure, yada yada, yeah, right. But his whole speech was lower the bar. If you tell people go out and run 5 miles, they will fail. If you tell people, hey, stand up while you watch TV.
Yeah, I love it, man. I did.
Now walk in place while you watch TV.
Yeah.
Now hold a plank during commercials.
Yeah.
Now go outside and run around your house 5 times, whatever. Right now, if the goal is 6 months, you don't have to do it tomorrow. You got to do it in 6 months. Same thing when it comes to recycling. If you're like, hey, at our facility we have an 80% recovery rate. That did not happen day one. That took 10 years of research and ingenuity and relationships, and it still takes work to maintain it. When the pandemic COVID bullshit hit, a lot of our vendors went away. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, what do we got to do now so we can maintain our recycling rate? But all of a sudden, like we had a guy that did books, he went away. So overnight, we had to recycle all of our books versus reusing them. Right? Yeah. It was a huge hit. Now, well, and also we still recover them. They end up getting recycled, but you've got to continually adapt and overcome and put work towards it. It's not a stagnant thing.
I had a conversation with a couple guys this morning. They got my number from a friend saying, hey, we're looking into getting the dumpster business. We got a really good deal on a truck and 3 dumpsters. We already got our LLC, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that's great. But they mentioned something that my friend told them, and this is not a knock on him at all, but he didn't understand. But he was just telling them different ideas they could do with their dumpster business. And he goes, well, yeah, man. He goes, dude, at one point, Casey he had them dumping in his yard, and he would just sort through everything before it left. That way you're not throwing everything away. He goes, that's a good way to start. And I go, well, here's the deal. I didn't start there. Okay. It doesn't make sense for you to go out and buy an acre and an office and all this crap before you have money coming in. And I even told him, I go, you're going to have 3 major problems day one. The first major problem is you only have 3 dumpsters. Guaranteed they're going to be booked already. You know what that means for you? You're out of inventory. The other thing is and the other thing he mentioned was about taxes and how he can, get away. I'm like, here's the other problem that you're going to have. You're going to need to get a loan because you're going to need to buy more dumpsters. I promise you. He goes, why? I go, because you need about 50 to actually get your feet going. And you won't be able to afford 50 on 3. Does that make sense? And he's like, holy shit, I didn't even think about that. I was like, that's why you don't just talk to a CPA, And then the third thing was you have to understand what your dumpsters are going to go through. So before you start thinking of getting a yard and doing all this other stuff, you have to think, my dumpsters, I have 3 of them. What are they going to go through before the fact that I need 5, 10, 20, 50, 100? How expensive is that going to be? And does it make sense? Because as a dumpster company, in my opinion, you don't need to touch it at all because it's in a dumpster. It doesn't matter what's in the dumpster. You're just taking it from A to B. The minute you dump it, You're no longer a dumpster company. See, now you're going to have to, implement labor, implement other things. It's just going to cost. So grow into those ideas. Don't just implement them.
Yeah, if you can't make money doing dumpsters, you're not going to make money doing anything else.
Right.
I see that too. I saw that too at the conference. Some of the guys were like, well, I price it this way so I get more customers. But I'm like, but you're running a net even. Like you got to, or adding more things over time doesn't make things less difficult.
Well, we talked to Tabitha.
Complicated.
Remember, we talked to her. And I think,
Tabitha.
Yeah, the dumpster.
We asked her what dumpsters. She sold these purple dumpsters.
Yeah, we asked her what her biggest issue was. She goes, I'm out of dumpsters. And she has like 100. Yeah, 300. I'm like, you're out of dumpsters. So, and those are 30 and 40 yards, right? 20, 30, and 40s, not 15 and 10s. Those are the big ones, which means, and that's the other point I made to him is, hey, look, just to let you know, your target audience in the beginning is not going to be big companies that you think. Here's why. They're going to say, I want all of them. Oh, you only have 3? Yeah. Well, I'm going to tie them up for about a month.
Yeah, that's it. And you're out of business by noon on day 1. That's it.
Keep the dumpsters. I don't want them back.
Well, that's what I told people. So 7 years ago, when I got back from Gitmo, I really wanted a scrapyard. That's it. And even to this day, every time when I went to the Scrap Expo a couple weeks ago, I'm like, man, do I want to fucking run a scrapyard? Like, I remember going there on Saturday mornings. I fucking love scrapyards. I love it. I love that business. But it was very labor intensive and capital intensive. Sorry, not labor intensive, very capital intensive. And then I looked at dumpsters. You and I, we interviewed Tabitha with my old business partners. Him and I were looking at dumpsters.
Even during JDog, we looked into it. Yeah, I mean, even during the process of JDog.
Oh yeah, and
we looked into the dumpster.
Correct. The only JDog that was successful was a guy that fell in on like 40, 50 dumpsters and contracts day 1. Yeah. I don't know anybody else. And again, someone correct me. Actually, this Carol lady's doing okay, but she's got the same issue. She never has enough dumpsters, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're working to work. Actually, she hit me up today. She asked me how the conference was. She asked me if JDog is represented, which they were not.
They were not there at all.
They were not there at all. College Hunks guys were there. Junk Genius guys were there. None of the major franchisees. And we're anti-franchisee here on this show. Actually, Fire Dogs. Those guys are a franchise-ish name. That guy was fucking cool as hell.
Didn't they start as 4-Alarm down in Houston?
They did, and then they combined. Yeah. So 4-Alarm guy started. Air Force vet. Mm-hmm. Then he was a firefighter, and now he's in junk removal. Cool fucking dude. Great handlebar mustache.
Well, I think
I had breakfast with him.
I think we don't say we're anti-franchise as much as we say we don't believe in franchising junk removal itself. The reason I say that is because if you're in a franchise, we're not saying you're going to fail because you're in a franchise. No. We're just saying if you were to start from day 1, we do not recommend franchising.
Correct. Oh, I'm 100%. I know. I will say I'm anti-franchising. You can fucking church it up all you want.
Well, I guess that's the same thing. Okay, fine. Fuck it.
No, I am anti-franchising this.
Junk removal.
If you got, correct, junk removal. Exactly. You got Chick-fil-A. God bless. You got Serve Pro. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And what's consistent here is even JRA themselves, right? They have said, unless you're 800 got junk, there's no reason to be in a franchise. Now, they might have removed that from their website since, but at one point that's what they said, and I full-heartedly agree with it. Issue I have with franchising this business model is Junk King is doing pretty well. I will say that. I've seen those cats around there doing well. College Hunks went from junk removal to moving. They're leaning more towards the moving end of things. And the model of flat rate royalty junk removal does not work because the franchisor is not financially incentivized to grow your business. And there's 2 more J-Dogs closing right now. And I will say that because people fucking tell me shit. So I am very staunch when I'm saying I'm anti-franchising because unless you're 800 guy junk, I've seen people fail. And I will say that for the same amount of capital, right? The same reason I get in the scrapyard, capital intensive. Same reason I do dumpsters, capital intensive. Well, how many guys have we talked to this last week? They were like, oh yeah, I've been doing it for years. I've been doing it for months. Hell, there was a couple guys that were like, yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of weeks just this summer, figuring it out. If they fail, they still got a truck, they still got a trailer, and they're only out the time and marketing money. When you go to a franchise, if you fail, you're out $100,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the issue.
And you're stuck with a 2-year non-compete, so you can't even make money.
And you're stuck with a 2-year non-compete, right? So that's the issue. And I've also seen, like there's this guy up in Washington, and I know tons of guys. that were in the franchise model that got out, that either played the fuck games for 2 years or just straight up like, screw it, we don't care. And now they're successful. Yeah. So that's the proof in the pudding. So I will stand on that I anti-franchising the junk removal space unless there's something proprietary about your system. 800 Got Junk's got a call center, amazing training, yada, yada. Junk King, they got a pretty good website. I don't know what else they have, so I'm not going to knock them.
Well, it's also how they treat their franchisees.
Correct, how they also treat their franchisee. Right? If they have their franchisees looking at each other as competition, that's a fucking problem. Mm-hmm. And also, I look at failure. Right? Who's successful, who fails? There's 2 college hunks in Milwaukee. They've been there since before I started. They're still there today. Now, other franchises, they fucking come and go. Mm-hmm. And I see it. Mm-hmm. Other people see it. Hell, even at JUNKCON, people were like, hey, you were with J-Dog in the past? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, yeah, they closed down in our area. I'm like, yep, not for nothing. Cool.
Well, it just goes to say there's no freaking secret sauce to this business,
there's no secret sauce. It's called, it's called working hard and figuring it the fuck out. That's it.
Yeah, and they will try to sell you that. Like, hey, this is our secret system. No, there's no secret system, guys. It's just, you know what? Do. That's it. That's the secret. Do. Keep doing it.
Do the fucking thing. Tell the fucking world. And then shut the fuck up. Yeah. Shut up to the haters. And if it doesn't work, jump out. Taylor's coming in. Taylor's got 2 cents to add. Taylor, you're on the air. Nope, now Taylor's gone. We should take phoners. We should do a live episode someday where we take phoners.
It's delayed. He said, ain't no barbecue sauce on that biscuit.
Oh, my God. Ain't no barbecue sauce on that biscuit.
Golly.
That might, you know what? Taylor might have just come up with the title for this episode. Ain't no barbecue sauce on that biscuit. JCON 22 review. We're right at the 59-minute mark. We've yelled, we screamed, we started somewhere, we ended somewhere else. Another great episode of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. Casey, any last, what were your key takeaways? I had a really good coach back in the day, veteran coach. At the end of every call, he's like, all right, what are your key takeaways? So I'm gonna challenge you with that. What are your key takeaways today?
My key takeaways are this. Get to know the other people around you doing the same thing. That way you can at least collaborate. You can at least know what you're dealing with. Also, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone and go to something that is more investing, right? Like AKA a conference. That was probably the biggest thing. The coolest thing I saw was the young people there who either they just started or they are young in it. I'm like, man, like I wouldn't have thought of that at 21, 22. And my last key takeaway is there is no secret sauce to this industry. There isn't.
Nope.
This right here, what we're doing, this is the secret sauce. Talking to others in the industry, sharing ideas, implementing them, learning and growing together.
Correct. And get out there and fail. So I'm on your mind, right? Get out and fail. Just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So getting out and fail. But what you just said, implement the things you hear from other people. Second thing is, for every mentor you have that's 10 years older, have one that's 10 years younger.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. I heard that from a mentor years ago. And it could not have been more true than it was at JUNKCON. Right, there was Sam from that had a huge 800 Got Junk franchise in Chicago.
Yeah.
Cool dude. I had dinner with him the first night we were there. Learned a lot from him. I learned just as much from Taylor, 25-year-old up and away, been doing since he was 17. Used to be a youth pastor in Atlanta, Georgia. Right, so you got to have the range. Right, and now I have that range of knowledge from 2 very different individuals.
Absolutely.
And then so fail. Learn from others, and I guess go out proud.
Yeah.
We are not junkies. We are not just junk collectors. We're not trash haulers. No, we are in an industry that is necessary. We are in an industry that can be proud. You know, my girlfriend always asks, why does anyone want to get into this industry? And that is not a rhetorical question. I ask that question. I love this industry. I want to be an advocate for this industry. I'm going to challenge the people in this industry to maintain professionalism when it comes to the way you treat your customers, the way you dress, the way you act, the way you recycle. I'm going to continue to challenge everybody in this industry because I want to see this industry get the respect that the waste removal industry gets. I want this industry to get the respect that other industries get. Right? I don't want to be, I don't even talk about what I don't want to be. I want us to be looked at as professionals. We are professionals.
Not a boutique industry.
We're not boutique, and we're necessary for society to function. So we're going to have shit all over the place. So I'm challenging everybody here. Be proud of this industry. Challenge yourselves, your collaborators, the companies around you, and even us, Casey and I, and the status quo of this industry, so that this industry continues to earn the respect of the people around us because we're producing at a high level. So there's your challenge. There's 6 takeaways after an hour and some odd change of bullshit, and as we always do. Another great episode. This one's going to get released early because it's hot off the press. Episode 31 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. It's in the books. We learned the thing. We said the words. Thank you for coming out.